The following is brought to you by our friends over at Actabl. Actabl gives you the power to profit. Please check them out at actabl.com and enjoy today's show. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of No Vacancy. Special treat today. I got Dr. Producer Suzanne Bagnera stepping up to the plate, and very excited about that. How are you, Suzanne?
I am so excited to be here with you today.
Me too. I'm excited to, normally when I have to ask everything, I have to, keep it on the cover. But today I got you to cover for me. So that's pretty good. We're excited to do that. All right. I'm excited because we've got a great guest today, don't we,
Me
Suzanne?
too. I'm really excited.
All right. So let's bring him on. Without further ado, Mr. Rob Smith, CEO of Stonebridge Hospitality. Don't call him president or CEO. How are you, Rob?
I'm excellent. I'm excellent, Glenn. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad Suzanne's on today because you're a lot nicer when you have her on covered. So
Love it. Thank you.
So it's so great to see you. It's really fun seeing you at all the events all around the country, for example. And I'm finding that we're in this part of hospitality where you've got to get smarter, you got to get more clever. Not like that's not all the time, but right now it feels really pronounced, Rob. And what I think is really cool is that you guys have a new chief strategy officer by way of Adam Snow, and I think this is pretty cool because I think this is gonna help you reveal the "you didn't know what you didn't know" kinda stuff.
Glenn, I worked with Adam at a different firm, and when they first brought him in,
Yeah.
I hadn't really been exposed to a strategy person before, and I kind of thought, oh,
Either has Suzanne.
yeah, what's this guy coming in to do? We run the hotel business. It's 101. But I was so impressed with him. But he was in that role, he was really, really confined to working with the board and doing special projects. It was more about corporate strategy and board strategy. And I told him once I got a chance to work with him, if I ever have the opportunity to hire you, I would hire you, but I'd put you in the field because, the beautiful thing about hospitality is a lot of us, including myself,
Yeah.
started at entry level jobs and we grew up in the business and we weren't taught to think strategically. We're taught to think about today. What do we need to do to get through today? And I remember when I was a GM in the Caribbean, I was talking to my owner, who lived in the hotel, by the way, and I said, we could do so much better if I could knock that wall down because we could then serve these two restaurants with one kitchen. And he said, well, let's knock the wall down. And it never crossed my mind that we could knock a wall down, right?
Right.
As a hotel guy, you don't think so. Yeah, so we brought Adam in. We're excited to have him here. He is going to help us at the corporate and board level, but his primary duties is going to be in the field. He's going to be working with our GMs, working with our folks above property. And one of the first things he talks to him about is, where do you spend your time? And what are your biggest priorities? What do you need to get done? And so often what they tell you, their biggest priorities, how much time do they spend there? Zero.
Yeah.
And so he's really going to help people think differently, and he's going to drive strategy into the property level. And so I think he's going to be a game changer to our owners, and also a game changer from a career standpoint. Because when I was a GM, I never got the opportunity to work with somebody like Adam. He's that different in the way he thinks and the way he approaches things.
Sometimes that refreshment is exactly what the doctor will have ordered. So it's
Yeah.
great to hear that. I would love to hear the intention or the thought process to how you as a company and Adam sees AI in the strategy of what you're trying to do to be more efficient and put the time that you're looking to in some of those challenges.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, one of the first things Adam did, he's been with us about 6 months now, but one of the first things he did was he wanted to dig in to see what he thought our secret sauce was. And, he said, Rob, it's not sexy, but your secret sauce is accounting, HR, administration. We're all operators, but so often in our space, people are failing in what should be table stakes, right?
Yeah.
And he said, Stonebridge has it right now, and how can you protect that as you grow to make sure that you don't lose that that secret sauce. So we're just starting to scratch the surface of AI. I mean, we're using it now in simple things like when we go to do a property visit so that we don't spend 5 hours looking at all the reviews and looking at all the social stuff. The great thing about AI will just bring it all into one. We're using it in marketing because, a year from now, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, you're going to see more people learning about your product through AI than through Google. I mean, that's
Correct.
the fact that AI scrapes the searches and makes it that much quicker. That's going to be, potentially even another booking platform at some point. So, we're using it in little ways right now, Suzanne. My goal, I've got a couple of goals. I mean, I worked at the hotel level for a long time. I was a GM for 20 years, and a long time before that, I worked almost every area. And what I don't want it to do is to replace people. And, that might be at some point somebody might say that I'm antiquated to say that, but, we're a
That's
people
not what we're
business.
saying.
Yeah.
Rob, we're believers and preachers of that. It's to help enable human to human contact and fill those jobs that we're never going to get filled anyway anymore because we have to be realistic about our employment levels.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to do the mundane, then the that people don't want to do. I agree. We're also using it, and this might sound a little bit 1984. Well, we're also using it to see who's not responding to emails, right? And
I thought you were going to use it to get me a date to prom. That's
there's several more years of advancement before we get there, Glenn.
yeah, that's true. Weird Science came out in 1986, I
Yeah.
think.
And I figured you were gonna go back to the future, but that was 1985. Just watched that again this weekend with my
Yeah.
son.
But we're definitely and of course AI in the revenue management space. We've been using that unknowingly for the last 3 years, as most of the programs are learning programs. But even still, with revenue management, it's only as good as the information we feed it. Right? We don't feed it the right information, it's not, and somebody has to be there to check it to make sure that the decisions it's making make sense.
Yep.
And even I had somebody in the industry tell me that they were getting rid of their underwriting people because AI is going to underwrite. And I just said I'm not going to trust my investment to an AI. I want to know that it certainly can help us get there,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure that whatever comes out of there, Stonebridge would have the guts to invest in it as well, right? And that we're going to be able to make it happen. So I'm a big believer in AI. I think it's going to change exponentially how we live our lives, but I think we need to be cautious with it and make sure that we're not. One of the things I hate, I absolutely hate when I get an automated answer on a phone or a text, or I have to keep yelling agent, agent, agent. I don't want to do business with people that want to save money by, pulling those kind of things out of the equation.
Next,
And
Rob, just trailing operator next
yes.
time on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
And I think a lot of people think like me.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, totally. Listen, I want her to get the AI for a second. I want to talk about the I, right? And that's why you got Adam there because he's going to the property level and getting real property level intelligence while helping the hoteliers there get out of the today now mindset. So, what are some of the things that you think you're going to be able to discover when you really start to get granular and see what's going on in the property level? Because we're all separated from that on a day to day basis.
Well, and I'll answer it in one way first because we operate 33 independent hotels and we own the guest information there. But the great majority of our properties that we run, because we run about 170, are branded, right? And so the brands own our guest information, so they're going to have to be at the forefront and making sure that they're staying a step ahead of AI. Because the first thing we want to learn is what the guest is buying and what they like, and so that in a very quick way, when they make a reservation with us, we can first and foremost sell them more, they knowing what they like, right? And then secondly, making sure that we know their preferences without asking them. And that's the forefront of AI. AI should be constantly learning about the guests, our repeat guests, and telling us, what we need to do to increase their share of wallet and increase their satisfaction based on their current habits. And right now the brands own that information, and I'm glad they do because they have the money to make sure that it's handled right. These smaller companies aren't going to invest millions in AI to learn those things, but the brand should be. And so I think that's going to be one of the things at the forefront. And I think that that has the widest application at this stage. The other thing you don't want to see happen, and I think AI is actually going to help us because when the search engines and the scrape engines started, we were we were potentially going into a world that would commoditize us, right? Where they would just say, "I need a hotel to stay at tomorrow night, and I need to be in Chicago in this area," and they would scrape 10 different hotels, and depending on the traveler, they would either pick the cheapest or the most expensive or somewhere in the middle. Where now, you're going to be able to say, I want to stay in Chicago. I want to be close to here. And I want a hotel that has, feather pillows and all the different things you want to say. And they're going to be able to scrape what you really need, which is, what's going to give me the best experience because the location's table stakes. And that's where I think we're going to see our industry go.
All right, so the location is table stakes, but the location is also everything. So how do you think about tying in the area around the property to make your properties more desirable to stay at than somebody else's in the area?
No, and that's it. I mean, it's everything, but I know Glenn, because I booked some rooms for you. You're not going to go stay at a hotel just because of its location, right? It has to be at the level you expect. And what I always say, most guests, their expectation is it's got to be as nice as my house or nicer, right? They don't want to go stay at a place that they want it to be nicer than where they live, or at least as nice. And they want to have the same electronic components, entertainment components they have at their house or nicer, right? And so, um, yeah, I mean, you're. I think what you're heading towards is one of the things we need to do as AI becomes prevalent in the guest experience is we need to make sure that we have the right content online so that AI captures not just the feedback of our guests, but what we want them to capture. Because instead of spending money on advertising, we should spend money on information so that AI pulls the right stuff.
It's a great way to put it because for too long, and I've said this numerous times over the last few months. It feels like a lot of brand websites just say like restaurant nearby or museum. They don't really give you an understanding of what the fabric and flavor of a neighborhood is. And I think it'd behoove us all to be able to do that. If we get closer to the neighborhoods, then people are going to get closer to us.
100%. People talk a lot about experience. It's a bit of an overused word, but it's like the gym. Even though I'm not going to pack my sneakers, I'm only going to book a hotel that has a nice gym because I might go. So I want to make sure that it has the gym experience is what it's expected to be, and it's the same thing in all other aspects of it, right?
Yeah, my in suitcase bathing suit that stays in there for a seemingly forever.
I saw you on the lazy river. I don't know what show that was, but, I think it was the Arizona,
It was. Rob, now to bring it up, I'm allowed to brag. I was the laziest of the lazy. I came in last place of the lazy river race, which I consider first place. So, yeah. Not to, Harry Jaber came in second to last. So, I'm sorry I disrespected him in his own event, but he had to come in, what are you gonna do? Rob, I am curious as to how you're thinking about preparing for as the market kind of shifts from under us. It's getting harder to maintain profitability. Forget the AI stuff, but how are you generally thinking about trying to improve margins?
well, it's a hot topic right now, Glenn. There's a lot of owners that are in an 8 or 9 year of a 5-year hold. And, our growth, we've had a fantastic 2025. We're going to grow about 13%,
Awesome.
which is in both units, a little bit more in revenue because we're adding bigger boxes. But all of our growth this year, with the exception of 2 new builds,
Mhm.
has come from management changes.
Yeah.
And why are we getting management changes? Because owners, they want the margins, they want the top line, they want to make sure that they've, 2 or 3 years from now, maybe 2 years from now, they're able to exit like they expected to when they bought the asset, pre-20. So, when we bring a hotel in, we I don't even look at what the last operator did, because the reason there's a change is because they didn't do it right. So
Right.
we underwrite things as, like assets we currently run.
Uh-huh.
We look at where the opportunities are. We have Adam, by the way, involved in every underwriting we have, because he's strategy. And even though he didn't come up through the hotel business, he came up
Right.
through the business of logic. And so, he's the guy in the room that says, "That's not logical, Rob. I don't think that's going to work." Or, "Are you looking at this?" Or, um, but we do a lot of complexing. We run 9 hotels at the Denver airport for 4 different owners, and those owners all are wide open to us complexing for the best of their business. And that, pre-COVID, they would have never, "Oh, we can't do that. They're a competitor." No, how can we run these? We do transportation collectively, and help save the owner 35%. It's like thinking it fat. So, we're looking anywhere we can to save money, as long as it's not going to take away from the guest experience.
Yeah.
Because, that's a slippery slope, that's a 1-year operator, not a multi-year operator.
Well, you didn't become CEO of a company by having the opposite attitude of that. That's for sure. You've got to focus all the time and take care of the customer. That's why I asked the question in the way that I did, because you found a great way to save money that creates a win-win for everybody. I'm curious, Rob, uh, how often, when management companies change hands with the property, the branch change a lot of that time, or how does that typically work?
And I'll answer that. I want to kind of put a point on the last part first.
Please
We're
do.
we're we're taking a hotel over, not today, not tomorrow, so I'm not going to tell you what hotel it is.
Understood.
Um, but the current thought process of the operation is that the guest experience doesn't tie into the profitability of the hotel. Like, the scores that we're getting from GSS aren't they don't reflect whether or not the property is successful. And, any hotel, whether it's a resort that's people vacation at, or an airport hotel where people generally travel, or business transient hotel,
Yeah.
repeat clients are the cheapest customer acquisition we can get.
Yeah.
And so, if you're operating thinking, "What can I take away from the customer?" That's just not going to, in the long run, your cost of guest acquisition is going to go through the roof, and you're just not going to be successful. So, that's the first part of the question. Um, the second part of the question, what was the other part of the question?
So, when management companies change it, now how often
Change
is
brand.
the brand change or not?
It's first and foremost, and I tell owners this all the time,
Yeah.
and it's not conducive to what a third party manager would say.
Yeah.
And I say all the time, you need to be married to the brand, not
Yeah.
to the operator,
Right.
because there's a creative value to the property to have a long term commitment to the brand,
Yeah.
but to have the pressure on me,
Mhm.
so that they're in love, not married to me. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
I make sure all the time that we wake up every day to perform. But there are times when the brand doesn't make sense anymore.
Mhm.
The brands are coming out with so many sub brands. There was a CoStar story about 6 weeks ago that talked about, the RevPAR decreases as more sub brands go into a market. So, and that's another area we use AI, right? We look at a market and say, how many rooms are here that are Marriott? How many rooms are here are Hilton? How many rooms are here are Hyatt in a 2 mile square radius? And when it comes back and it's lopsided, you say, how much brand contribution can I get?
Interesting.
You
That's
know,
interesting because you're talking about two issues. One, which you addressed directly, the more of X brand there, the less of that loyalty slice up there is. But also, the more hotels in general there are, that you're seeing also distribution through there. So it's a big balancing act, I'm
Or
sure.
it's not a cruise ship. I can't go park it somewhere else. It's got to stay in that location. So, what brand makes sense because, they're pretty consistent with what they produce. I mean, if we have a branded hotel like the two big ones, Marriott or Hilton, I better get between 40 and 60% true direct production, not what they say is direct, but what's really coming through their system and part of their loyalty program. And their Hilton and Marriott are very consistent with 40 to 60%
Yep.
brand contribution, and that makes that brand worthwhile. And but when you go into a market and it's lopsided and it's 70%
Yeah.
one brand, 30% another, it's a no-brainer. I don't need to be that brand that's saturated in the market. I'm not going to get my brand contribution. And when I don't, two things happen. I either have to spend more for guest acquisition, or I've got to start taking more OTA and other channels and not have the right mix. And so that's where it doesn't make sense. So yeah, we look at that. Usually it's difficult because the brands are long-term contracts.
Yeah.
And the brands are pretty good if you go back and say, hey, I'm saturated. What do I need to do here? And they usually work with you if you ask the question. But there are times when you get to an asset and it's either on the market and it's unencumbered with a brand, and then those are how you make those decisions. How can I pick a brand that's going to help my segmentation stack and to maximize income?
Yeah, and to say on the brand side, sometimes they are cool with a particular property leaving because then they have the opportunity to resell that specific flag, bring in the application fee, and probably get a newer type property.
And
Anyway,
that's why they're putting more pressure on pips and such,
yeah.
because you're 100% right, Glenn. If you don't do the pips, I can get a nicer property for my flag in this market. It's that competitive. You're 100% spot on.
Yeah, pretty interesting to see how this business continues to develop over time. Suzanne, ask Rob something over
Well, I was just going to say the other thing you have to keep in mind is that it's not just a change in management contract, but if you were to change a brand from the financial perspective, you do also need to take a look in that because, as Rob said, there are long-term contracts that way. So, what is the aspects that is keeping you, Rob, awake at night about what's going on in our
I mean, other than this podcast appearance that you had.
Yeah. The greatest thing that keeps me awake at night is I have a Great Dane with a very weak bladder. You wake me up about He
Hey,
wakes me up about five
I
times
did
a
not live
night.
with you.
Wanting me to take her out. And besides that, so I'm not somebody that stays that loses sleep over anything. I always joke that I sleep like a man with a clear conscience, but I believe that things are going to happen, and we just need to stay in front of them. And as long as you're aware of a problem, what might keep me up at night is things I don't know, right? And being surprised by certain things that I didn't expect to happen. But um, I think a lot of people are kind of freaking out about the year we're having, and I don't know if it's my age, but I've been through
Yeah.
all kinds of cycles. I've been through COVID. I've been through 9/11. This isn't even a correction. The market's flat, and we got used to, mostly because of inflation. People don't want to hear that, but we had a huge growth spurt over the last 4 years because inflation drove our rates up 20%.
Yeah.
Inflation does more for hotel rates than anything. Unfortunately, our costs also went up, and that's where we have to operate smart, like Glenn said. But this is not a year that should be keeping people up at night. If it is, they haven't been in the business very long. You know,
Hallelujah, Rob. I did the same thing. Like when people complain about how high interest rates are, I'm like, y'all recall what they were before the Great Recession? I'm like, it's all perspective,
you're,
and that
you're
gray hair helps with that.
yeah. I mean, in 9/11, I was on an island where planes didn't come in for 17 days, and That's that's something to keep you up at night. Hopefully we don't have things like that happen, but our market's doing, the people are just, I was talking to somebody the other day. They said, "Oh yeah, Vegas is a disaster. It's off 13 points. It's going to run 82% this year." I don't think anybody would say that's a disaster, right? It's a correction. Business is down,
Mhm.
and certain areas are down.
business was more down on the strip when that statement was made than all around. And since then, just so everybody knows, MGM reported record profits, for example, last quarter. So
Hey, gaming is up 9%. So the RevPAR might be down, but once again, rates have softened a little bit, and yeah, the strip is only off, I think, 4%. So in RevPAR, but it's part of it's our business is very cyclical. The reason this is not a cycle is because what causes cycles is increases in supply that demand keep up with, and ever since COVID, supply still has not even come close to catching up. So this has nothing to do with supply.
love that attitude because you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I always try to share with people in the industry is there's two sides of the industry: the operator side and the development side. So, as the operators, it's not bad when no new properties are being opened. It's a developer problem. But for when it comes to your ability to keep pushing rates and keep being successful, if you don't have anyone opening, it's a big help, right?
Yeah, it's also very interesting dynamic that upper upscale and luxury continue to crush it, and right now we're it's the during COVID the levels of vertical were kind of blended. It's like people just stayed anywhere, and the rates were pretty close, but upper upscale and luxury have just kind of blown out the doors, and I see in the next I don't see any end in sight. Next 24 months. I mean, if you're going to invest and upgrade, we were awarded the W in Atlanta, and we're converting it to a JW, and yeah, it'll be open in April, and that's the product right now that's killing it, and if people are willing to pay. They to as long as they get what they've paid for. So
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, value, not price. Value doesn't mean cheap. It means making people feel good about the money they are spending, no matter what that price point is. Rob, any words of wisdom before we let you go?
keep your head up. I think, don't be worried about what you see on a daily basis. Talk to older people like me that have lived through it, and know that, the right now we're in a pretty sunshiny time, and we should be outside smelling the roses and realizing it's not a horrible time. It's just a time, like you said when you opened, where you're not going to survive if you're not paying attention to the owner's investment, because that's what it's and the guests and your assertions.
And it
But
doesn't Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that you live in a city with the most days of sunshine anywhere. You got all that positive energy raining down on you.
that's right. It was 81 degrees yesterday on November 2nd. So people that say that Denver's cold, they haven't lived here, but if
Yeah.
they come in January, they might not get that.
All right. So, as somebody who was recently in Denver for a few days, I found it both to be hot and cold simultaneously, depending on what side of the street you are on.
Yeah, you have to be in the sun, and then I froze on. I was it was my year to give out the trick or treat candy, and I could tell you it was really cold on Halloween night. I even built a fire in my driveway. It still didn't help.
It might have been 80s in Florida for trick or treating, so we'll take it.
Yeah. I rub it in, rub it in. Rob, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Glenn, thanks for having me. Suzanne, nice to see you again.
It was great
Hey,
to
tell
meet you.
Anthony I know he didn't show up because he was scared.
It's exactly right. Oh, he is intimidated. Thanks, Rob. I want to thank all of you guys for being here today. Make sure you subscribe, download, follow us. Follow Suzanne if you're not following Suzanne. She's got a lot of great things to say. She's going to educate you. I mean, she's got doctor in her name. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
Follow your passion.
boom, right there. See you all later. Bye.